Like this Tegaderm is so old, it's yellowing.
Ew. Like if you put it on someone, it would just like
Like
curl onto itself.
it expired in March of 2019. So this is demonstration only. This is not for human use. This is Nursing Uncensored. Your host, Adrianne Benning, invites you to listen in on real conversations about all things in the nursing world. This podcast is intended for nurses, nursing students, and allied health professionals, but non-medical folk will probably get a kick out of us too. If you like what you hear, subscribe and share. Welcome back to Nursing Uncensored. It is I, Adrianne, and it is you, Jillian. Welcome, Jillian.
Oh, I'm so excited.
How are you doing?
I'm so good. I just got off a night shift and I haven't slept yet.
So this is going to be a real good episode.
100%. Plenty of genuine laughs because like the humor threshold is super low, so everything's
Super low.
funny.
Everything's funny. That's awesome. I am well rested with a knee injury, so I am actually antsy and feeling more pent up than usual because like even walking around my house is difficult. So today we actually have an episode that we're doing at listener request. So actually, oops, I just bumped me with my boobs. So I got an email from a listener that said that they were excited about my nurse hack episode. But at the time, I was releasing the episode about the nurse hackathon, which you can go back and listen to, which is actually a weekend where nurses all get together and they brainstorm and they try to solve problems. This year it was specifically about COVID. So I think I got people a little excited about a nurse hacks video or interview, and instead we talked about an event. So I think people might be like, even though that event was cool and the episode was good, people might be like, where are my hacks? So today we've got a list of I've been making this list of hacks.
Hackless.
I'm a hack tease. So I have a list of, let me count how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We might not get through all of them, but we might, because some of them don't really require a lot of discussion. It's just like, this is what I do. Here's how you do it. Use it as you will. So we're going to go through these things, and you've seen the list and you were like on board with all the things I put on the list, right? Cool. And so I do want to give a little disclaimer, as always, is that you need to know your institution's policies and procedures before you do anything that is considered a shortcut or a hack, because safety is paramount. None of these things I'm suggesting to you have really any safety consequences, but I encourage people, use your judgment, know your policies, don't do anything that you wouldn't do in front of your boss. These are all things I would do in front of my boss. So all right, and these are in no particular order. So let's talk about the first one, the bedroll. So you're a proponent of the bedroll, correct?
100%, and not even the whole bed. You can take any portion of that bed and it is applicable and it is a lifesaver. And like I've told you, day one of ICU training, make your life easier because the rest of it's gonna suck.
Yeah. So basically, for those of you that aren't in the know, a bedroll is when you take, on a hospital bed, you usually have like a flat or a fitted sheet, depending on the bed and depending on the patient. But you have like a fitted sheet, and then what we call like a draw sheet, a lift sheet, a pull pad, whatever, a slide sheet, whatever you want to call it. And that's really long, and it usually goes from like the patient's shoulders, down past their feet. And we use it to like boost people up in bed. And then you have usually an incontinence pad on top of that, so that if they have a little accident, you can roll up the incontinence pad, chuck it away. You don't have to change the whole bed. So in making a bedroll, you literally do that. You can take any number of layers, but like when I do a bedroll, I typically am doing a draw sheet and anywhere from 1 to 3 chucks, depending on Does the
Good
patient ooze?
situation.
Do they poop a lot? Do they need pee and poop containment? Like there's all these variables. But the basic gist is that if before you need it, you can do it like as you need it as well, but before you need it, I usually will make anywhere from 1 to 2 bedrolls. If I have a patient that is incontinent often, uh hypo, what am I trying to say, not hypo, hemodynamically unstable, which is more ICU than like my patients, if they are confused or they have trouble breathing when they're laying flat, and to go along with confused, if they're combative. So you want to have them flat in the bed on their side for as little time as possible. And so rather than rolling the, put the head down, roll them on their side, tuck in the draw sheet, tuck it, you've got the bedroll, pop it in, unroll your half, tuck in the other side, and you've saved potentially minutes of this patient being like, I can't breathe, bring my head up, fighting with you, whatever. So I think that this bedroll idea saves minutes and saves your back.
Yes, and I'm also going to say, because we are in the COVID area, and for anybody that is working with like vented COVID patients, this is going to save your life, especially if you have them maxed on whatever oxygen device. This saves you, and it saves you the 20 minutes of them having to come up from decompensating.
Exactly,
100%.
exactly. The other thing that's nice about this is if, like, say, like, I'll do it like if I know I'm going to do a bath midpoint through my shift. I know I have one for like when I do their bath. If they're incontinent, I might have 1 or 2 others. You can also make them on the spot, but that kind of defeats the purpose of having a bedroll. Unless, like, I know that I kind of already have an idea when I get report which patients I'm going to bedroll or make
Mhm.
bedrolls for. I shouldn't say that I'm going to bedroll. That sounds really bad. I'm going to bedroll him. Um, the other thing that I didn't have on the list, but is kind of an adjacent thing to the bedroll, or just turning a patient and changing sheets in general. So you know how when you're on the receiving half, so the person just tuck the clean sheets in, and then the
Mhm.
patient is going to roll back the other way, and you unroll the clean stuff. Okay, you
Mhm.
follow? Well, when you
Yes.
unroll the clean stuff, 90% of people work from the bottom up. They take that fitted sheet, they try to stretch it out, then they pull out the draw sheet. The person on the other side of the bed may be struggling to hold that person over. So when you have a bed, you're pulling the clean stuff, you take the dirty stuff, get rid of it into your hamper, and then take the clean stuff out, immediately give them the draw sheet, the pull sheet, so they have something to hold on to. Not only does this save your coworkers back, but this saves you, you've had patients that are heavy or obese, and when you're holding on to them, your fingers are like digging into their flesh, they're slippery, your gloves are sweaty, you're trying to hold on. This solves all that. And then while you're holding that draw sheet over, they can stretch that sheet every direction they want, and you're not going to pull the patient out of the position they're in. So that's
Mhm.
my little side note.
Mhm.
So that's number one and one and a half, really. Anything you want to add to that? You love it.
No, yo, 100%. Like I said, every single crit care unit I've ever worked in, that is one thing they have done. And like I said, especially now, because the majority of our patient population decompensates very
Yeah.
quickly, even if they're maxed out on whatever, yeah, this has definitely saved a lot of time. And like the roll, like, so when you talk about rolling, it's like kind of like more of a horizontal thing. So sometimes, like, depending on like the situation, which I don't know why I've been getting very like strange situations lately. I have people that will like move their, like, they won't move their upper like trunk, but hips down are completely movable. So if you do the roll with just the incontinence pad, like if that's all you're looking to change, you can actually roll it like halfway under their butt and then just lift each leg. Works the same way. No one told me. So yeah, it doesn't have to be the whole roll, and you can just use the legs. Again,
Yeah,
don't know why nobody told this, but here we
absolutely.
are.
I did that. I used to do home care, and so I used to help my individuals get dressed and put her pants on in bed, help my client, and that's what we would do. We would kind of just, and she was kind of thin, so I would just help her raise her leg, lift that butt cheek up off the bed, tuck it. I mean, it works fine. You just have to know your patient and what's safe. Obviously, you wouldn't do that with like a spinal patient, but you got to know who your audience is. So yeah, bedroll. And I'm going to put a link in the description because I actually made a cheesy but very informative, like 2-minute video on how to make a bedroll.
Mhm.
So that if, as you're listening to us talk, you can't visualize this, you can go over to my YouTube channel and you can see that little black and white old. I made it in the theme of like silent movie. So it's kind of corny, but it's kind of cute too. So, all
No, but
right.
I like it because you don't need to talk the whole way through it, and you're just
Yeah.
like, here's what
Yeah.
it is.
And
Here's what
I
we
mainly
do.
made it that I mainly made it with subtitles so that you don't have to there's like cute old timey music, but that way if you're like at work or something and you just want to watch it and you don't want everyone at the nurse's station to hear you playing my stupid old timey video, you can just watch it with the subtitles. So that's my plug for the YouTube channel for the episode. Okay, so the next one on the list, I have to give credit to our buddy Brad. For those of you that have been listening to the podcast since the beginning, you know that our pal Brad was a nurse with me on my unit for. I was lucky to have him around for many years. He lives out of state now. He took a job in management. He's getting his PhD, blah, 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 blah. Poor Brad, doing awesome. But anyway, he taught me just this past year about this is for a very specific patient population. Do you know about
Mhm.
this? Do you know
So
about
we
this?
Yeah, so I actually started referring to it as a continence cone.
Continence cone. I like that. So you are witnessing growth and progress here. Us two white ladies have decided to stop using that old phrase. We're going to call it a continence cone now. So I'm gonna use a Kleenex and my finger to demonstrate. Does that sound okay? And
Yes, that sounds
you can
perfect.
see my ibuprofen bottle sitting on the table over there. So let me move this. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate. So imagine this is your chucks and this is your patient's penis. Now, the way this works for patients that have penises and not for the ones that don't, but basically, I've had patients before that because they're incontinent and because of certain things, whether it be prostate issues, infection risk, whatever, we can't do a catheter. But sometimes the scrotum and the thighs and the entire kind of peri area, as I like to say, the entire area gets like really red. You get dermatitis. It's horrible on your skin. Like it's bad news. So when you have a patient that's incontinent, they can't tolerate a condom cath, which as it states is an external catheter that goes over the penis like a condom. But in the absence of that, we got to get creative with chucks. And I've had
Mhm,
patients who are conscious and they're alert and oriented. And I've said to them, hey, I want to try this. And it sounds weird, but it'll probably help your skin. And eight
mhm,
times out of 10, they'll be like, sure, I don't care. I'm laying in this hospital bed anyway. Go for it. If it'll make me feel
mhm,
better, I'll do it. And then patients that are maybe not oriented but are incontinent, I've done this before, but you have to know your safety and all that. Okay, so blah, 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 all my disclaimers. So you take the incontinence pad, and we've got like a little ghosty here. We've got like this is the cone essentially. And
mhm,
you take scissors, since this is a Kleenex, I'm just going to tear. So you tear out that center portion of the tegaderm. I love that we're doing this in video so that I can actually. Then you take this chucks, and once your patient's peri area is clean, you have to make sure the hole is big enough to allow excess space for the penis to come through. Now, you want this hole to be big in case there's any swelling or additional issue. But then what I do is I just take the incontinence pad and I gently drape it and tuck it under so that now, instead, when they pee again, instead of it going all over their scrotum, their legs, the bed, it's contained in this chucks. And if you position it just right, it won't leak out. We have super absorbent chucks, so it absorbs all that urine. So then when you have to clean them, you're cleaning urine off of basically just their penis skin. Is this going to be the screenshot for the YouTube thumbnail? Is this going to be my photo?
No, I think you should because it gets the people wondering.
Okay, so this is so anyway, this can, in the appropriate circumstance, really save your patient's skin. If they're alert and oriented,
Mhm.
don't do this without telling them what you're doing. They're going to be like, what the fuck are you doing to my penis? Why are you putting that? But I've had patients that say, oh my God, my balls don't hurt anymore. So it can really help in the right circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Again, all the disclaimers: allow space for swelling, don't leave it like this forever, you can still get dermatitis, like just be careful. But that's that trick. So that's number 2, is the
Mm-hmm.
continence cone. All right, and then do you have the list in front of you, or you want me to just keep rattling them off?
No, here, let me see.
I want you to talk about number 3. 3 is the triple glove. Most
Haha, the triple glove.
Will you talk about the triple
The
glove for us? Oh, I didn't even bring a drink here.
100%.
Okay.
No, I didn't either, which is very strange because I normally
We'll
always
take a
have.
break midway. We'll take a little break and
Yeah.
go get a beverage.
Okay. So yes, the triple glove. So, first of all, you walk into a room and of course you put on gloves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wrongo. You grab an extra set. And then you think, oh, we're set. Wrongo part 2. You grab another set. Why? Because if you don't, you're going to play yourself. Because if there's one thing that anybody has learned on their first day on the job, is that you're going to get your hands dirty, and then you're going to get your hands dirty again, and then you're going to be like, oh no, I'm out of my rubber hands. So then you're up a creek without a paddle. Is this a poop creek? Is this a pee creek? Is this a blood creek? You
Is it
don't
a
know.
wound creek?
But you're up it. Is it a wound creek? Yes. So you don't know what's going on. You can also have the classic glove snap, which is somehow worse, I think, because you didn't plan for it. So you get your 3 gloves on. So then when
On
you're
each hand.
doing
So you're doing
wound,
6.
yes, so in total, so what you do is you go to the glove box and you're essentially just a magician, so you just keep pulling gloves.
And then
Yeah,
1 set, 2 set, 3 set. Did I need to act that out? No.
correct. No, but it's true. Also, if if you have sweaty hands, which I think there might be, yes, there's one on there as well. I am gonna say this just in case for some
Mm-hmm.
reason you watch this one and you decide that you don't want to watch anything else, go a size up.
Mm-hmm.
If I am calm, cool, collected, I wear small size gloves. If I put 3 small size gloves, I have no circulation left in my hands. So
Yeah.
do a small and 2 mediums, or 2 mediums and a large, or whatever. Just please account for the extra gloves because you want to have all 10 fingers when you're done. So you put on your 3 gloves, you're going to do your thing. So let's say you're doing pericare. So you go ahead and you take out all of the dirty stuff. So let's assume that whatever is dirty on your chucks, on your tegaderm, on your tape, whatever, let's assume that is not on your skin and something different, some weird drainage. The drainage is evolved. Take off your one pair of gloves, toss them in the trash, make a nice 3-pointer. Now you have your second pair of gloves. Then you can clean, do everything you need to do, get your dressings, everything like that, or whatever your situation is. Take off your second pair, sink another 3-pointer. Guess who has another pair of gloves to do all your clean things? It's you, because you wore 3 pairs of gloves. Now, I am gonna say for this, there are some situations where I have to do 2 gloves and then bring a third pair and not put them on.
Mm-hmm.
There's only like a couple. If I'm trying to like IV, or I'm trying to do like arterial blood gases or something, unless they have like phenomenal, like strong heart runner's pulses, I can feel them with 2, but I can't feel them with 3.
Mm-hmm.
And in that instance, 2 is the max unless somebody else has better fingers than I do. Any other situation, the 3 glove trick works
Mm-hmm.
absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I like
And it's a
the Yeah, and I don't use the 3 glove technique every time, but I use it, like,
no.
for example, if I go in and I can like see the poop running over the edge of the bed onto the floor. Okay, I'm gonna need massive cleanup here. So I'm not gonna go in with just 1 pair of gloves. I'm fortunate that I'm half smalls are too small for me. Mediums fit with room. So I'm like a
Mhm.
small and a half. So I will do 3
You're a
sets of medium
medium.
gloves. I'm a medium. So I'll do 3 sets. And that way, like you said, you can do the debulking, the cleaning with the first set of gloves. And then when that's contaminated, you obviously don't want to dig back in with dirty gloves. So then the first set comes off into the trash. The second set then is for, like, obviously, like the cleaning, the involved part. And then, yeah, for the third, I'm usually like putting on butt ointment or lotion or something like that. And you just don't want to mix those. So I also did a little video on how to do this. I don't know if I've released it yet. I don't think people really need instructions how to put on and take off 3 sets of gloves, but this can be really helpful. The one area where I will say that my background in sex education comes into play is if I don't think anybody uses latex gloves anymore. But with latex, I know, like, for example, the reason they tell you not to wear 2 to 3 condoms to increase your level of protection is because the friction between levels of latex can cause the latex to break. Now, anecdotally, I've not done research on this, but anecdotally, I have never had a pair of our nitrile gloves rip from friction of another glove. Again,
No.
anecdotal, but I've never had that problem. Um, but this has helped me out a lot. This also helps me when, like, I'm in an ISO room. I'll put on a set of gloves, I'll put on my ISO gown, and then I'll put my gloves over the top and tuck in the cuffs.
Hmm.
So that way, if I'm in an ISO room and I'm sweating my ass off, which is what I do anytime I'm in an ISO room, if I need to change those gloves and I take that outer layer of glove off, now I have to either wash and thoroughly dry my hands to get another set of gloves on, or I have to stand there like this trying to dry off my sweaty fingers. Because otherwise, I mean, I've had patients laugh at me as I'm like trying to put the glove on, and it's like a fucking vaudeville act because I'm like
Hmm.
breaking gloves. Yeah, so I do that. And
Yeah.
then to allude to what you were saying with the size up, that is the next one on the list. This one applies not just to the triple glove, but anytime you have sweaty hands. Like, I've had those situations where I'm in an emergency. Like, I don't have time to be like, I'm going to wash my hands and dry them so I can get these gloves on. And I can't wear large gloves. Like, large gloves literally fall off my hands. So if I can't get a medium on, what am I going to do? I'm going to put on a pair of larges because I can get them on without any trouble. I just slip them on. They're like clown gloves on me. And then I put a medium over that. So it fits me and it stays on my hands. But then I'm not standing there like trying to get every damn finger into the glove. So sizing up with sweaty hands and then putting your usual size over the top of that, that's served me really, really well in the years I've worked in the hospital too. So,
Hmm.
and when people see me do that, they go, "Oh, duh, why didn't I ever think of that?" And it's like, well, yeah, I didn't think of it either until someone showed me. So
Also,
that was number 4, basically.
can I just say, yeah, can I just say too, if you are a nursing student, if you are a new graduate nurse, if you have 26 family members in the room with you, just go up a glove size because you're not going to be able to get your normal size on because your hands are going to sweat and then you're not going to be able to do basic tasks because you're going to be nervous. So
Yeah,
just a size up on that.
and when you've got like 20 people staring at you and judging you on your competency based on whether or not you can get your damn glove on.
Correct. Yeah. So when you go, you're like, oh, I normally wear a small, but you're like, oh, this is the testing environment size. So it's automatically a size up.
Yeah. This one doesn't really need any description, but just remember that, like, I've had times where like the curtain doesn't go far back enough for the patient to be able to see out the window, or like there's something weird going on where I need to like tie back the curtain. Use tourniquets. Now granted, you don't want to just waste tourniquets using it for everything because you need them for actual patient care. But if you have an extra tourniquet in the room and something is like your hook for your Foley bag is broken, so you can't hang it on the side of the bed, or your patient keeps dropping their teddy bear, you can just you can tie one end of the tourniquet around the teddy bear arm and the other to the bed rail. Granted, you want to know your patient, you don't want them to like come in and find that they're choking themselves with a tourniquet. But in certain situations, tying things with the tourniquet, super simple, nobody ever thinks of it. But I walked into a room one day and the curtain was tied back because it was hanging in front of the computer and it was like not on the track perfectly. And so somebody had just like bunched it up, tied it with a tourniquet. And I was like, you're a fucking genius. Why did I never think to do that? So that's that one.
because
That's
it's
number 5.
because it's so simple.
All right. So the next one, talk about using a Chucks as a trash can lid. That was another one that I was like, oh my God, why have I never done that?
Okay, so I'm actually unfamiliar
Is
with
this a new one
this.
for you? Okay, so
No, this is 100% new.
cool. Okay, so then I'll explain. So you might have a patient that, for whatever reason, you have deposited some stinky stuff into a trash can in their room. Now we have really tall trash cans, and then we have our little waste baskets. But the tall trash cans, like if you have a patient that basically like poops every time you go in there, like every time you've gone in, they've been incontinent, and you're changing that, which is reality for a lot of patients
Hmm.
and nurses. So if you're going in there and you're changing them every single time, and either you have incontinence briefs in the trash, or you have disposable chucks or whatever in the trash, or anything that's odoriferous, food, anything that you don't, but say like you just took the trash out and you don't want to use a giant sized trash bag every single time this patient poops. Well, what you can do is if you have the cloth, like the heavy chucks, like the ones that feel like they're made out of like burlap on one side, they're really
Yeah.
heavy. And if you just fold that and put that over the top of the trash can, it works surprisingly well at blocking in the smell, like keeping the smell in the trash can. Because as a patient, you may be incontinent, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a sense of smell. So, do you want to lay in your hospital room smelling your own poop 5 feet away all day? No, not a person does, alert or otherwise. And so,
Hmm.
if you do that, that is good in a pinch when you're like, either I don't have time or I don't want to take the trash out every freaking 20 minutes when I'm in here. So that can be a really nice way to like just keep it all contained.
Hmm.
So yeah,
I like
that's
that.
one. Oh, this is a good one. This is number what are we on? Like I'm skipping one. So I'm skipping. Actually, no, let's just talk about this real quick because this is just a statement. Something that I learned while doing palliative care that I didn't learn doing just like regular adult bedside care. If you have family members that are really hovering, or maybe they're like too intense and the patient is like, oh, get away from me. One of the ways that you can kind of redirect those family members away from being like overstimulating or overbearing or hovering, give them
Hmm.
jobs. Like actually give them a job. Say like your
Yeah.
job is to swab this patient's mouth. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to show you how much water. When they seem like they're thirsty, because not only does this give family members, it redirects them into something that's actually helpful because they don't know. They've never been CNAs or nurses. They don't hang out in hospitals. So it gives
Mhm.
them something to do, but it also takes some of that workload. And now I'm not saying pass all your work off onto your family members, but if you know that every time you go in there, you have to hang meds, do this, well, then you can say, hey, Aunt Julie or Mom Debbie or Dad Rick. Yeah, that can be a good way to put family members to work. So, I know that you work with a lot of patients that are like intubated, sedated, that sort of thing. So, you're not really giving them liquids, not by mouth anyway. But do you sometimes have patients that are on like thickened liquids and that sort of
Oh
thing?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah.
when you thicken water, will you describe the thickening process, please, for those who have never seen a thickened liquid?
Yes. So there's technically three different consistencies. So you have what is it? Like nectar, honey, and all I can think of is cement, but I know that's not it. Uh what is
It's a
regardless, you have like what is it? What is it
hang
called?
on. Why am I struggling now too? I do this 100 times. Liquid
Pudding.
pudding. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Oh,
basically,
there we go.
so think
Yes,
about how
now
thick
I can say
nectar is. Think how thick honey is. Think how thick pudding is. Yeah.
yes. So, in your institution may be different, but yours and mine both, we get this big jug of thickener. And it's actually nice because they have instructions on how many pumps of this thickener takes to make honey, nectar, and pudding. So you take it and you pump however much into your thin liquid. Then you take a fork. Don't use a spoon because it'll leave chunks, and that's not nobody likes
Whisk
chunks. If
it.
it's not, yes, if it's not cottage cheese, it doesn't need clumps. So take your fork because you're a nice person and just whisk it like you're making brownies. So that when you get done, you can take the fork out and then judge if it's the right consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can, I've had maybe on one hand, a person tell me that their liquid that they thought was previously enjoyable was enjoyable after it thickened. No one prefers thickened liquids. It's terrible.
So now,
Alas, here comes you in here making life easier for everyone, making things palatable again.
so before I tell you my hack, I want to ask you technically, and this is a technical question, this isn't just a preference question. You know the answer to this. If you give someone, say, honey thick liquid, so say you thicken up some water for them, tap water, whatever, filtered water, I don't care. So, well, the water, it comes out of the tap pretty cold, but not really cold. Can you take a glass of thickened water and put a whole bunch of ice in it and then give it to them?
No, because then it just thins right back out.
Right. So, what a lot of nurses end up doing is giving people stuff that if it hasn't been refrigerated, like water, I have patients say to me, like, ugh, warm, thickened water. But you can't put ice in it. You can't just leave it with ice. So, here's what I do, and here's what works fucking great. So, I go into the nutrition room where we have our pump, and I have two glasses. One glass I fill with whatever the liquid is, usually water, because everything else we have is well, except for 7 Up, that's not refrigerated. So
Mhm.
most everything is refrigerated, but if it's not, and it's either coming out of the tap or it's coming out of a warm 2 liter, you want to make it cold for them. So here's what I do. I take the liquid and I thicken it like I normally would to the appropriate consistency, maybe a scotch thicker. Then what I do is I take a full glass of ice, full ice, and I pour that thickened liquid over the ice and I let it sit not very long. It doesn't take very long to get cold. Think of a bartender chilling a martini glass. They put some ice or cold water in the martini glass, they let it sit for a second, you watch it kind of fog up, and then you get an ice cold martini with no ice in it. So then what I
Mhm.
do is this glass of thickened liquid with ice in it. It's only sat there for a minute. The ice doesn't have time to really melt. But then I will take the fork I just whisked it with, pour it back into the original cup, straining out all the ice. So now the liquid is cold and I can assess if the thickness is correct before I give it to them. And then when I hand them the cup, instead of handing them warm jello water, I'm handing them cold, thick water, which most people prefer. So when you're thickening your stuff, you got to do the final check to make sure you didn't inadvertently thin it out. But this is how I chill my patients' drinks at work. So you can have honey thick room temperature 7 Up actually be cold.
And your patients will love you because that's probably the first time that they've had cold, thickened liquid ever, if not in a very long time.
Hmm. So I basically, anytime I see someone in the nutrition room and I'm doing it, I'll be like, hey, check this out. I do this. You should do it. My patient loves it. And most people are like, oh my God, that's a great idea. So, and it takes like barely any time. Like I understand if you're in a hurry, but also your patients are going to be more likely to get their liquids consensually. Some people would just be like, I ain't drinking that. And then it's like,
Mhm.
okay, but we need to get you to take in liquid so we can DC the IV. You drinking that? Well, this makes it a little easier. So that's number, what
Mhm.
was that, like 7? I've lost count. Here, let me count on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we did 8. Now, Jillian, we worked together for a short time before you stepped up into the nurse role. And I was a nursing assistant before I was a nurse. You were a nursing assistant before you were a nurse. And
Mhm.
I know that together we must have done the pillow taco. You know the pillow taco?
100. Yes.
You have the floor. Pillow taco. Explain the pillow taco to us as best you can.
So, this is applicable if you want to do either side. This is also applicable if you are turning your immobile slash need to get comfy patient from side to side. Like the, you know where I'm going with this?
Yep. And you go ahead, and
Okay.
I'll fill in where you need. Yeah.
Okay. So if you have a patient and they're laying flat and they're like, I'm just like not comfortable, or like this bed this hospital bed is not like my Tempur-Pedic home. This is nice sleep number. And you're like, yeah, sir, I know, I'm sorry. So here you come in with pillows. So you have your draw sheet or whatever your maxi slide pull sheet, whatever your bag is, and you lift up both sides, not at the same time by yourself, because save your back 2020.
Yeah, but you can do one
And you,
way and then the other. Yeah.
yes, if you're by yourself, yes, preferably grab a friend because save your back. So you take the pillows and you nestle them in on either side like a sweet, sweet
You keep
cocoon.
talking.
So not only is your patient not straight spine to bed, they also feel like they're being cradled and nestled. And big humans like to feel like small humans when they're sick. So the pillows almost act like a nice hug.
I'm messing up my green screen here. So essentially, you've got this going on. Even sitting in this chair, this feels good, dude. So
I know.
that does alleviate pressure. And if they like this, so I've had patients that like are crawling out of bed, confused, restless, pulling at their gown, and I do the pillow taco, and then I elevate their knees, and they're like, and I've even had nurses be like, "Oh my God, what did you do to them?" And I'm like, "I pillow tacoed them." And the reason I call it a taco is because it's like it's a nice little chalupa of pillow for you.
Mhm.
But yeah, and I do this when I come home from work. So I've got my regular pillow here, this one, and then even just sitting here, this feels so good. Um,
Mhm.
First
I'm
podcast
actually I'm
episode.
doing it right now.
The other thing is that say you want them to be more on one side than the other, do one pillow on this side, two on this side, vice versa. This is also going to stop your patient who's on their side from doing this. So many good reasons to do the pillow taco.
You can actually take your pit, like if you're turning a patient onto the one side, and you know how you get those really like new fluffy pillows and they're so
Mhm.
hard to tuck under. So yep, take it in half and then take your hand, and while you're tucking, don't tuck the edge, tuck the middle.
Mhm.
Take your fingertips,
Poof.
shove it in the middle. Yes, and then what's going to happen is, because the pillow is a monster, it's going to automatically take the side, shove that in first, so you get what you wanted in the end. And you don't have to worry about repeatedly tucking, messing up, getting wrinkles for your
Mhm.
bedbound patient, this, that, and the other.
Absolutely. That is one of my favorite tricks. And now even on the unit, I'll say to people, "You want a pillow taco?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, let's go pillow taco." So that's like our lingo on my unit, but it works. It works.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage all of you, next time you have a patient that just won't stop wiggling and moving, try it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've even told people, even if that only works for 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes that they looked like they were comfortable. So give it a try. Give it a try.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. What's the next one? Oh, so this is another kind of two-parter because I wrote one tip, but it kind of goes with another for me. So we often work with patients that have either PEG tubes, nasogastric tubes. You probably see oropharyngeal gastric tubes. Is that right? Like with into
Yeah.
patients. My unit doesn't take ET tubes, so we don't have the oral ones, but point is the same. You crush the meds, you mix them with water unless they're already liquid, and you push them through the tube. So there are two things that I do. And again, know your policies, know your procedures. I would do this in front of my boss. So if you're giving someone oral medication, if they were swallowing it, they would take those meds in a cup down the hatch. There they go. You're not saying, okay, take this pill, now drink water. I mean, some patients do want to do that, but we don't want them to do that. We don't want it like one pill at a time. So, in theory, all that medicine is just going into their stomach anyway, and it's getting mixed up. So, instead of being precious about it and being like, flush, okay, here's another med, flush, okay, here's another med, flush, like you're going to be in there for months. So I usually get a clean specimen cup, which I use for my shift, and then I dispose of it. Or if I'm using medications that maybe don't need to be hanging around. But I just squirt all that shit right into the specimen cup, mix it all up with the appropriate amount of water, and then you have one syringe of medications instead of syringe, flush, syringe, flush, syringe. You're saving yourself so much time. And then
Mm-hmm.
also, the other thing, again, know your patient, know your policies, but I will do so we have extension tubing. We don't just like push right into the peg tube. We like to have an extension tubing that has like another alligator clamp so you have an extra barrier against that thing popping loose and just leaking everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So ours have two ports. Usually one port is hooked up to the tube feedings, and then we push meds through the other port. Well, you have to put the tube feedings on pause anyway when you're giving meds. So I will take the tube feeding off entirely. I will have one giant 60 cc syringe of water and one syringe for my meds. I always take two when I go in for my shift. So I can draw up all my water depending on how much their flush is. I usually flush like 30 to 50, 60 maybe, depending on what's ordered for them. And then the med. So I'll hook, if I've got two piston or if I've got two ports, I do water in one, meds in the other. And then I can push the meds and I don't have to turn around with the same syringe and go suck up water, turn back around. I can just do one, then the other. The caveat, though, is you need to make sure one doesn't come loose and that the bed is protected, because if one comes loose while you're pushing meds, you're just going to push them all out onto the bed. So you really got to, this is more of like, and I think an advanced skill, but this is what I do. And then
Mm-hmm.
once the tubing is all flushed, I lock both off or I hook the tube feeds back up, bada boom, we're done. But some people do prefer to do each medication, but I do all my 5 checks. I lay it out on the table. I mean, I'm very methodical about this. When I have like a total care patient that like, IVs, peg tube, whatever, they got all the bells and whistles. That's something that I'll do. It saves me a lot of time.
So, first of all, if you come in your shift and you're on one of those days where every single person has an NG, an OG, a dog hop, a peg tube, any orifice is covered or filled with a tube that your meds can go in, you're not going to have 16 pill crushers. So, if you're hanging any sort of meds, which I can't think of, I don't know why I'm only thinking of like 3, but like nitroglycerin bottles, albumin bottles, propofol bottles, Presidex bottles, those work phenomenal for pill crushers, if not better than a pill crusher itself. So what I do is put it in your packet or whatever it is that you're crushing pills into, and I kind of take it and like fold the side down like I'm folding like a UPS envelope or something, and put it on the table, make sure there's no air or anything, make sure the meds aren't like stacked together to make holes or anything. And I almost take like a mortar and pestle and kind of grind it down. Yeah, so if it's one of those that has like a weird coating on it, sometimes it doesn't work super well. But if you have just like colored powdery
Like it's Tylenol
pills,
or
no
whatever.
matter
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It works phenomenal and it's quieter. So for all
So
of
you don't
us
have to be
working
like,
night shift, you boom, boom, boom.
I
Yeah.
remember when I worked neuro, they used to use the flashlights. So you'd hear off in the distance in the middle of the night. But yeah, you hear people like banging down the hallway because they're using the flashlight to bang up the pill they forgot to crush.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, if you've got like a glass bottle or something, use like that kind of crushing motion rather than like, because even people with the regular pill crusher that we have, that's like the lever pill crusher, you like put it between the two things and crush it. People still are like bang, 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 and it's like, geez, like doesn't take that much effort, but maybe you got some shit to work out. Like I'm just gonna stay out of the med room till you're done. But yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Okay, what about now?
Now it sounds perfect. Okay, guys. So we are making, because the connection is a little choppy, I've asked Jillian to turn off her video for a little bit. So let's try this and see if it makes any difference. Sorry, Jillian. They got to look at my mug now.
You know what? It's okay. I mean, it is your podcast, so I think it's only fair.
Oh, please. Okay. So I'm sorry. Start over. You were saying that when you're in ISO rooms, that you're not
Yeah.
stocking them.
Correct, because you don't want to be wasteful. You don't want to take in too many supplies. And even if you are trying to be prepared, you really you think differently non-ISO room versus ISO room. When you're in an ISO room, you're like, okay, don't take in things that can't easily be cleaned. Don't take in things that, with bodily fluids can get stuck in the corners, Don't waste your supplies that can't be, sanitized, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go in there and you're trying to crush up meds and you don't have a specimen cup, if you have the pill crush pockets and they do not have corners, that's the key, they can't have corners, you can crush them and you can put the hot water in the envelope
Mm-hmm.
and then mix it with the tip of your syringe and then just suck it right back up, and there's no
Yeah.
corners for it stuck in.
I see what you're
So
saying.
as
So
long
some of the pouches, the inside, it's more of a U shape, so you can get all
correct
of the med out of it. If it's like a square packet and there are like tight corners, you might lose powder in there that you can't get out.
correct
But yeah, you can just squirt it in the package, mix it up. I'm clumsy, so this is a dangerous one for me. That's why I like to have the specimen cup so that I can really like whisk that shit up without getting it all over.
Yeah, I was
But
just gonna
yes,
say, this is one of those things, like, if you are confident in your hands, which, like, 50-50,
or like
otherwise
you're
it's like,
given, one pill or something. Yeah.
correct. But that was all. That was all.
Oh yeah, but no, but that's an important point because a lot of people don't realize that when you're in an ISO room, you don't have a fully stocked closet because anything you don't use when that ISO patient leaves gets thrown
Mhm.
away. So we keep those really barely stocked. So sometimes you got to get creative. Yeah, that's a really good tip. Okay, now for the next one, for this whole episode so far, I've been wearing this piece of silk tape on my arm hair. And so I want to demonstrate two things on my arm here, okay? We're going to see how successful I am at it. So when you have a patient that's had tape on their arm, it's hard to get off sometimes. And you end up doing this kind of shit, like trying to peel it, pinch it, grab it. Some patients are like,
Yep.
"Ow, that hurts." This doesn't work every time, but this works. What's the saying? This work 60% of the time. This works every time.
Mhm.
So here's what you do. You got another piece of tape, right? Here, let me see if I can show this. Okay. So take that piece of tape and stick it to the tape that's been there a while. Now, it still takes a little coaxing, but you can use that tape to pull up the edge of the old tape.
Mhm.
So this is a really helpful trick so that you're not doing the like scratchy pokey. What I've also seen people do is, by the way, this is all from my nursing school lab kit. You're about to see my ancient tegaderm that's starting to yellow. So no, I did not rob my hospital. This is all shit that I had on hand. But the other thing people do is if you have to do the picky peely stuff, they'll take an alcohol pad and
Yep.
use that to kind of, because not only does that kill some of the adhesive, but it also, oh, now I'm realizing I do have arm hair here. That the adhesive not only comes up a little bit better, but then your nail, there's a buffer between like your nail and their skin. Okay, this is
Mhm.
coming off. Ooh, okay. So speaking of which, that's actually a perfect segue into my next tip. I've lost count. I don't know what we're on. We're on like, I don't know, we're more than halfway through. So this is my, I don't know if you can see, this Tegaderm expired last year. It's kind of turning yellow. I don't know if here, let's see if the light, I don't know if that shows it anyway. But anyway, this is a Tegaderm. This is a Tegaderm. So this is clear. We do this over dressings, IVs, wounds, gauze, the whole 9 yards. So
That looks like Florence Nightingale's tegaderm. It's so yellow.
it's pretty gross. So anyway, you got this Tegaderm on. A lot of people don't know this. I learned this from, I was injured once as a nursing assistant. So, as light duty work, they had me going around doing in services for the new PICC line dressings that we now have that have the chlorhexidine in them. Well, anyway, I learned this. So, you've got this Tegaderm, okay? Say you've got a dude that's way hairy, way more hair than my little blonde hair. Okay, so what most people do is they grab the Tegaderm. See, I'm struggling now and it's been on 2 seconds, and they'll just pull, right? Well, that doesn't
Mm.
feel great when you have hair. So you're about to learn the lateral pull and release. Okay, I'm going to try to get closer, okay? So you see, I've got this little corner up. Getting the corner can be tricky. Use the tape trick. Now, if you pull laterally, look, this bitch is just going to let go. It
Mhm.
looks like it's pulling my skin, but it's not pulling any hair. It's not pulling any skin. This is great because You can do this on fragile skin, hairy skin. But yeah, if you pull it sideways as opposed to up, it'll just let go. So you can do the entire tegaderm this way. Just pull and stretch, pull and stretch. That one broke because it's fucking old.
I was
By
just
the
gonna
way,
say, I'm so invested in this ancient tegaderm. I was so ready to see how well this thing peeled off.
it's gone now. It's dead. I still have like sterile drapes. I have the sterile gloves that I opened and then would like repackage to practice my sterile field. Yeah, that stuff is ancient. Well, I shouldn't say ancient. I've been a nurse 4 years. I started nursing school 6 years ago. So that was a tegaderm that I acquired 6 years ago. And it expired last year. So anyway, thank you for your service, tegaderm. You've been great. Let's see what's left. Oh, this is another good one. So I'm really type A when it comes to taking a report. One of the things that I like though is, when I come back multiple days in a row, my patients can have any number of changes. We can have patients go from walkie-talkie to very sick very quickly. So when I come in and take report, I use the same. So if I have the same patient like 3 shifts in a row, I use the same report sheet every single day, but I take report in a different color every
Mm-hmm.
single day. So that way, if I'm coming in on my third day and I'm like I'm exhausted, I'm not running on all cylinders and I need to make sure I keep my information straight. Well, I can look and see that like, oh, I wrote that like bowel sounds issue in pink. That wasn't from today. That was from a couple days ago. And then if a physician comes up to you and is like, oh, well, when did you do that? Blah, blah, blah. I can be like, oh, well, I wrote it in pink. So I did that on Thursday. And I don't have like colors designated for the day of the week. It's just every day I come in, I have a different colored pen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's helped me a lot in just keeping myself organized. And then when I come back the next day, I don't have to be like, God, did I write that today or was that yesterday? Whatever. Because sometimes you have those feelings as a nurse. You're like, what day is it? I don't know.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So yeah, so taking report in a different color every day is like a nice habit to develop. I know other nurses that do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what else? What else? We have 3 more, and these are going to apply. One of them applies mostly to just nurses. The other 2 can also apply to CNAs, patient care techs, and as many of these can. So I wrote, what did I wrote? Pinch sub Q for less pain. The fuck? Oh, yeah. So everybody hates heparin shots, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever had a heparin shot?
I've never had one.
Neither have I. But what do people say it feels like? Every single person says
That sucks.
and it burns. So even
Yes.
if the needle isn't a big deal, the medicine as it goes in burns. So
Mm-hmm.
this is my two-sided trick to make it hurt less. So first, we're doing sub-Q tissue. I have plenty of it back here. So we do sub-Q. So you pinch the skin, put the needle in just to sub-Q tissue, and then that's the shot. Well, if you give a really nice firm pinch, I mean, not with nails, obviously, but like if you give a nice firm pinch to the point where it's slightly uncomfortable, people tell me that when I do that, they don't feel the needle. It's like that gate theory, even though it's not exactly gate theory, but it's like I'm so distracted by the sensation of you pinching my skin, which doesn't hurt, but I'm so distracted by it that I don't feel the little sub-Q needle.
Yes.
So I have people say that to me all the time. So I always say, I'm going to give you a fair pinch before I poke. And most people are like, oh, you poked me already? Yeah, because I've distracted you with this heavy pinch. So like I didn't hurt myself, but I did make myself red doing that. So it's worth it. People say it doesn't hurt as much. Also with heparin, so you poke the needle through their skin, you inject the heparin. Well, wait a second, wait like Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, then take the needle out, because what happens is when you're injecting, those last couple drops may be on their way out of the syringe, but if you start to pull that syringe out while you're still injecting, that medication is traveling through all those layers of tissue that you're pulling out through. And so some people say if you wait for a second, then take the needle out, it doesn't burn as much. Okay, 2 more. They're simple ones. I keep saying, oh, this one doesn't need any explanation, and then I talk for 5 minutes. but we're getting to the end here. Again, this is like a draw sheet kind of thing. Both of these are. So this is about turning and boosting your patients. So there's lots of tips I could give. I'm not going to go through every tip. Of course, like reverse trend the bed if they're heavy, get gravity working in your favor, all that.
Mhm.
Use slide sheets. But one of the things that I often see people do that drives me crazy is that when they're about to help me boost, they come up and regardless of how big the patient is or where they're laying on the draw sheet, they'll just grab the edge of the draw sheet so that when they boost, they try to like pick the patient up and slide them, almost like they're picking them up like in a hammock. And I attest that you want to boost people on a stretcher, not a hammock. When you are coming up to grab your draw sheet, don't just grab the edge of the draw sheet and pull. Grab that draw sheet, get that draw sheet in your hands. I like to get right up to like the edge of their body. So if they're a large person, maybe the edge of the sheet is the edge of their body. But if you've got a 90-pounder, don't be grabbing the draw sheet 6 inches out because then you're increasing the amount of friction. You're dragging her instead of sliding. So
Mhm.
I think that's really important to note. So when you're going up and you are going to grab that draw sheet, don't be afraid to get a handful of that sheet. You don't just have to grab it on the edge. And you'll actually find that you're probably going to get less fatigued doing this way as well.
Yes. You can also roll it just like just like
Yeah.
the bedroll. Instead of just grabbing it in a clump. Yeah, if you roll it, then you have like a solid foundation of something to grip onto.
And if you end up working in the ICU, this actually lends itself to the technique of proning someone, where you actually take a top sheet and a bottom sheet, and that's a burrito. That's not a pillow taco. That's a sheet burrito. And then you literally like clamp them between the sheets. You roll the sheets up tight and you grab it close to their body so that with the team you can
This
flip
is
it.
I am leaning forward. The happiest moment of my life is we are able to talk about proning together.
I learned it with my COVID training. Like I had to go to ICU to learn how to prone.
This is Disneyland, the happiest place on earth.
The
It
intermediate
is,
nurse has come to the crit care nurses world.
oh, I'm so happy. It's like everything good is happening at one time.
I'm glad we can speak this language together.
Oh, it just warms my heart. I think I have like an actual couple goosebumps. Like this is literally the happiest day of my life.
I'm glad I was able to do that for you. This is kind of the last one that I have. I mean, I could probably think of more, but this we're getting over an hour here. So this is kind of my last one. So it's kind of a fizzly grand finale, but this is the grand finale. So all the time, if you have patients that maybe are too weak, or we have patients that have had sternal incisions, so they can't use their arms to like push themselves up in bed. So if we're boosting them up in bed, well, the bottom half of their body works. So nurses will be like, hey, put your feet on the bed. And when we boost, push. The problem is if you don't move the draw sheet out from under their feet so that they're on the bed directly, then you're having them push against the thing you're pulling. So don't do this. If a nurse says, okay, put your feet on the bed, bend your knees, put your feet on the bed and push, that only works if they're not on the draw sheet. So move their feet, tuck the draw sheet up a little bit. Just remember to straighten it back out once you're done. This is also a pet peeve episode of mine, basically. All of these tips are things that I've been like,
Mm-hmm. Because I got good stuff out of this.
I'm glad that you learned stuff from this stuff. I thought that I was just going to be telling you stuff that you already knew, or yes, Adrianne, I've heard you say this 100,000 times. I'm glad you
No.
got something new out of this.
No, because the cool thing is like, first of all, I miss working with you more and more
I know,
that
me
I'm
too.
hearing these. Because I'm envisioning everything and where everything is and what you're doing, and then I get FOMO, and like it feels like I love my life and I love where I'm at, but I miss it. Just hearing those sweet, sweet words, sternal incisions, it just takes me back, and I'm there and I'm happy.
Well, I miss you very much as well, and I'm glad that we can still do stuff like this. I'm not a
Yeah.
crit care nurse, so someday you will have to come back with a list of crit care hacks for all of our crit care newbies. Because this stuff, there's a lot of stuff that's nurse specific on here, but a lot of stuff that I've just given you guys is CNA level. But those CNA jobs don't stop just because you become a nurse. So that I want to be kind of my parting thought is that you are still responsible for knowing how to do that bed change, knowing how to toilet your patient. And there are a lot of nurses that are like, I didn't go to school to do. Yeah, you did. Because when you refuse to clean up poop, you refuse to clean up vomit, you're missing out on assessments. What did that poop look
Mhm.
like? What does their rectum look like? What did that vomit look like? Are they vomiting up their medication? Is it tube feeds only? Are they vomiting up? Like, this is great. I rely on my nursing assistants who are there when I can't be to report these things to me. But just because you're a nurse doesn't mean you ever stop doing these things. I loathe nothing more than a nurse who is not busy, not crunched for time, and says, let the NAs do that.
Mhm.
Oh, I used to be one of those NAs. Those are fighting words in my eyes. Like when you say, now if you're busy, delegate to your NAs. If you've got good NAs, they're worth a fucking fortune on a bad shift. Like I love my NAs, but I don't care how many certifications you have. If you have a patient that needs to take a poop, you go help them. So anyway, that's
Mhm.
my soapbox. Like we never graduate out of these tasks. So even though these are NA, CNA, PCT tasks, a lot of ergonomic stuff, you don't ever get to let these things go, right?
No, and don't expect to have a nursing assistant. Um, one out of the 3 ICUs that I have hands-on long-term worked in, one of those had hands-on techs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I know in our ICUs, a lot of the techs are environmental. So they'll help nurses with things, but they're not the ones going around doing vitals, doing blood sugars. Like a nurse might say, hey, I'm going to be in this room. Can you go get a blood sugar for me? And they can do that sort of thing, but they're not like rounding on your patients. It's different everywhere, but I think in ICU, that's a pretty standard thing because those patients are so like fragile in a way that, yeah, the nurses are doing a lot of that care themselves, right?
yeah, and I mean, even if you don't have tech, like you still need to know how to get your patient's bed ready. You need to be your own CNA because you also
Mm-hmm.
need to be self-sufficient wherever you work in whatever role. I mean, you can't you need to have teamwork, but like you can't rely on other people, like you said, just because this isn't my job.
Right. Nursing assistants have all my love and respect. I spent 11 years as a nursing assistant, and I should do a show just on the stupid, crazy shit that I had to do as an NA because everything from the unreasonable to the mundane, it's all been on my work list. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I want to thank you for joining me again. This was really fun. I always love talking to you. I'm sad that in these days of pandemic mania that we can't like go get our nails done or go have like an onion blossom. I don't know why I said that. I've never had an onion blossom before. It just seemed like a normie mainstream thing to say, a thing that we would share. I don't know.
Onion
That's what
blossom.
came up. Suddenly, an Outback commercial from 1997 is playing in my head. Anyway, on that note, I think we're done.
Thank you for having me.
Happy nursing. Thank you for coming. Happy nursing, everybody. Here at Nursing Uncensored, we may be, well, uncensored, but we're not unfiltered. Protected health information has been changed and concealed to comply with HIPAA. The things we talk about are from years of experience with thousands of patients, things we've read, stories we've heard. If you think we're talking about you, we're not. Also, we're real nurses here to provide helpful and accurate information, but don't take anything we say as fact without doing your own research. Refer to your state's Board of Nursing, Practice Acts, and your institution's policies and procedures if you have questions about your practice. Lastly, our very strong opinions are ours alone and do not reflect those of our employers, educational, or professional institutions. Thanks for listening, and happy nursing, folks.